Welcome to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast, where brave people share their story to inspire others and what's possible. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and I'm the founder of It's Your Story to Tell and the Coach Collective. And we are back again here with Sara. And if you missed the last episode, Sara was walking us through her journey of being a Christian woman who went through a divorce. And today we're going to be talking about kind of all the things that she learned and what she is doing to support women in a very similar circumstance. So if you have not listened, I'd love for you to jump over there so you're not just jumping in at the middle, but you understand where her experience comes from, and that is navigating her own journey and what the Lord spoke to her and showed her as she went through that, and is now living a really wonderful life with a man who supports her and loves her and cares for her and her 3 children. Now, we recognize that you may be in the midst of walking out this journey and that you could be experiencing some really hard things right now. And we want to encourage you to seek help. I know that's really hard. We were talking about that in the first episode. Sometimes it's really hard to find the help, but we're here. If you are in this situation, you can feel free to connect with us. You'll have all that information in our show notes, but we're here to encourage you if we can, or direct you to resources. If you are going through something really hard right now and you are in a place of darkness, despair, or just not knowing what to do next, and you need help right away, I want to encourage you that help is available. You can call or text 988 or chat 988 lifeline.org. All right, so we're just going to dive right back in, Sara, and you are going to start sharing about the journey of the divorce happened, and you started your, healing work, because we all know like there's a lot to heal from when you come out of a difficult relationship. But then how do you go forward and look for that healthy relationship?
Yeah, so the first thing that I started doing was after I got divorced, I actually had a little bit more free time than I had previously because sometimes the kid would be with their dad, right? And
Mhm.
when I was married, I didn't really have a whole lot of free time. I didn't really have a lot of time to do the things I wanted to do. Probably some listeners are in that same situation as well. And so it was kind of ironic that when I got divorced, it was like I'm a single mom now, but I actually had a little bit tiny snippets of free time. And so one of the things that really helped me heal and helped me regain my confidence was taking advantage of those opportunities. So if I had an opportunity
Mhm.
where I was going to have a free day or a free afternoon or something like that, I figured out what it was that I wanted to do and I went out and did it. And so I like to do things outside. I like to hike, I like to bike, I like to run, I like to do yoga, all these things. And so if I had an opportunity, I was going to go do it because I didn't have a lot of that time before. And it's like, here's my chance and I'm going to take it. So I would encourage other people
Mhm.
to do that same thing. Take advantage of the time that you have. If you don't have time where you're without your kids, you can still do some sort of self-care at home. Maybe it's take a long bath. I tell people, even if you can just literally put in your calendar, I'm going to sit for 10 minutes in the bathroom with a cup of my favorite tea, like do that.
You have to get
Take advantage
creative,
of
right?
whatever
When you
time.
have little kids.
Yes. And
Exactly.
so I
Self-care is
remember
so
one
important.
time, yes, I remember one time I was going to go biking and I went out and it was super hot outside and I go into the garage, I'm getting my bike and like it had a flat tire and I thought I had a spare tube and I found out I didn't have a spare tube and so I was going to have to go to the store and then I was going to have to come back and then I was going to have to pump it up again and put it on the bike and all this. Anyways, I had texted my friend and she's just like, you're still going after all of that? Like, why would you still be going? Like, it took me like a long time to get I was like sweating buckets in the garage. But my response to her was like, this is the time I have to do it. If I don't do it now,
Mm.
I'm going to miss my chance. And so I went
Mm,
about doing things like that. Like I decided this is what I want to do for myself. This is what I enjoy doing, whether it was taking myself out to dinner or, I had just planned maybe to get takeout and I wanted to watch this movie, whatever it was. I thought about it. I planned out what I was going to do. And then I made sure that I had the time and I did it. So I would really encourage people to figure out what those things are because you need to rebuild yourself. Right after this, you need to regain your
mhm,
confidence. You need to figure out even what it is that you enjoy anymore because a lot of times we've been in relationships for so long, especially if you're also a mom. It's like you pour so much of your time into your kids, or maybe it's your job, or it was trying to stabilize the marriage, or whatever it is, that you kind
mhm.
of lose yourself a little bit and lose what is it that I actually like to do. And so it's a time that you can really take
Or
advantage of,
maybe
like,
you were lost
rediscovering.
before. Like
Maybe.
maybe you were lost before. Like I was just really great at being a people pleaser and trying to make everyone happy. And I had no idea like, what do I like to do? What makes me
Right.
happy? And so I love that you're bringing that to awareness. And funny enough, like I kind of did a lot of the same things that you're talking about in my journey. And one of the things that was like a really big step for me, and it was kind of like, okay, I will know that I am okay being alone because that was kind of my journey, was like learning to be single and to
Yeah.
be by myself because I was always looking to others to give me that sense of value and worth and connection. And a lot of it was very unhealthy. And so I was like, I'm going to go on a vacation by myself.
I did the
And
same
I am
thing.
not someone who wants to go and sit at a restaurant by myself because I'm like, they're probably thinking, poor her. Why is she by herself? And I was like, I need to do that so that
Yeah.
I can like work through, why do I care what they think I'm like my story is? No, I'm
Right.
choosing this. I have my book. I'm having a meal that I really love. And I went away for my birthday for a long weekend. And much like you, I love outdoors and I love the beach. Not the same as the beaches I grew up in Florida, here in Oregon, but it was in late July. So it was a perfect time for Oregon beaches. And I rented an old RV that, you stay in. They don't move, but they're on a piece of
Hmm.
property. It was like right there on the beach and I could walk right down, and it was just like this cute little quaint place. And I had like this dessert that I want, and all of those things that you're
Yeah.
saying, like really planned out, like taking care of me. And like it's not like I don't need a man, but it's like I want to be healthy and whole and not looking to somebody else to fill those places because that's a really bad place to start a relationship.
Oh, for sure. And I tell people, you need to be confident and content on your own. Like
Mhm.
you should get to the point where I'm happy by myself, am excited about doing things even if I'm doing them by myself. Like sometimes I'm more
Now I'm
excited
like,
about doing
when's the
them.
next time I get to be alone?
Right. Right. And it's like me and my friend were like,
Oh.
man, we've become so independent that it's going to be hard if we meet somebody and have to kind of rein that back a little bit. But I would definitely say you have to get to that place before you should even begin to look for a
Mhm.
relationship, because looking for a relationship is not so that you don't have to be alone, right? It's not so that somebody can
Mm.
complete you. It's not so that you can find your missing piece. It's like I had to do all of that before by figuring out who did God say I was. I had to put my identity in being God's daughter. That's who I am, and that I'm
Mm.
complete in that. And I don't need to be coupled up or whatever, to be a full person or a complete person. And so definitely I would encourage people, you need to get to a place where you're content and you're confident by yourself,
Mhm.
and a place where you want a relationship because you think it would be something good for you to have. You think it would be something that would enrich your life, not something that completes your life, right?
Yeah.
And so
You
it's
know, not from
so
a place
important.
of like neediness, like
Right.
I need you because let's face it, like I was part of the marriages that didn't work. And I brought my baggage into that, and I was looking to them for to fill these holes that I
Yep.
wasn't looking to God, and I wasn't, healing the wounding. And so no wonder I made the mistake again, because I didn't do my work in between. And now I'm happily married to a man who I, dreamed of when I was little, and I was like fairy tale prince, kind of caretaking husband. Well, but I attracted a healthy person who we are not in this codependent relationship, but it's so nurturing and caring in such a healthy way. But I would have never gotten there if I didn't take that time and get to know myself, know who God said I was, and heal and figure out all the way back to where was wounding that occurred that created these narratives that I wasn't aligned with who God said I was. Because I needed to like close those up so that the enemy couldn't keep attacking me in those
Right.
areas and keeping me stuck in these unhealthy patterns.
Yeah, and I mean it's so important to exactly what you're saying. Like you're not going to find yourself in a healthy relationship if you're not starting from a place of being healthy yourself, right? Because especially if
Mm-hmm.
you've been in a long-term relationship or have been in a marriage for a long time, especially if you have felt neglected or, whatever the situation has been, we want connection with people, right? Like we want that
Mm-hmm.
intimate connection, we want physical attention, we want somebody to be there with us, we want the relationship, but it's like you can't want that so much that you're just willing to overlook so many other things, and you're willing to like ignore the
Mm-hmm.
red flags, and you're willing to just jump into a relationship, before you're anywhere near ready, just to get the attention or just to get the love, quote unquote love, or
Mm-hmm.
just to get that desire settled. It's like that's jumping in too early is just going to lead you to further emotional problems, right? It's not going to really
Mm-hmm.
fix things in the long term. And so it's so important to just do the work of that ahead of time. And then once you're in a good place and you've learned about healthy versus unhealthy relationships, which is one of the things that I teach, it's, how do you recognize what is even a good relationship, what is not a good relationship? And I had trouble with that initially after my divorce.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, I was able to realize, okay, this is a red flag for sure. And like, here's how I
Mm-hmm.
say no to this. Here's how I close that door and not continue to go back. And I decided, here's what I want out of a relationship, here's what I don't want. And once I started operating out of, that mindset, it was so much easier to date without getting emotionally invested, because I was able to
Mm-hmm.
tell from the beginning, is this truly somebody that has the qualities that I want versus, oh, well, they've got these good qualities and they're a nice guy and they don't really have this and that's really important, but these other things are good, and so I'll just ignore this one major thing that's not that important and continue on with that person, and that's kind of what we
Right.
do initially
Mm-hmm.
is we kind of hang on to
Mm-hmm.
the good qualities because we're afraid that we're not going to find anybody else, and so we're willing to settle
Mm-hmm.
for less, right? Out of fear that we're
Yeah.
not going to find what we really want. And if you can learn how to stop doing that, if you can learn how to say, this is what I want, this is what I'm deserving of, this is what God would want me to have, then you can start saying no to those red flags. And you can start saying, look, I'm not going to settle for this, or I'm not going to go down that same path again, because you're set more on what you really want. You're more confident in yourself. You're not trying to just fill this hole that is where God should be, right? And where you should be content already.
Yeah, I think one of the things in my own, when I knew like, okay, you are healing, and healing for me, I think we're never arrived until we're with Jesus. Like there's just this
Hmm.
continual growth process that takes place. But as I was recognizing, like I can end a relationship, like because
Right.
before, if I like looked back in my life, I wasn't ending relationships. And that was because of that fear, or just like, well, I know they had a bad day at work, or they had, like I was really good at kind of, I don't know if it's the nurse in me, or I was attracted to nursing because I'm a, personality things, right? But that caregiving and that like wanting to see the
Right.
best and wanting to help out. But when that is not used in a healthy way with boundaries and without the awareness, and it is what got me into those unhealthy places. And so when I could go into a relationship, go out a few times, maybe even, there was one that it was an extended period of time, and the person was not a bad person. It was like there were so many good qualities, but
Hmm.
there were some that they weren't even bad, but they just weren't in alignment with
Right.
what I was seeing or wanting in my life. And when I could end that relationship, it was like, wow, okay, you are in a healthier place, because before we had intertwined some things, and I would have said like, just this is going to be too complicated. And I could have seen myself easily just right back into that situation. And it wouldn't have been God's best for me. It wouldn't have
Right.
been had everything that the Lord had put in my heart. Like we have desires, right? And the Lord says He'll give us the desires of our heart, but we have to be patient. We have to align with Him because it's us that gets in the way most of the time of getting those things that the Lord has put in our heart, because He created us. Those desires, those dreams that you have are likely the alignment with who you are and what He has for you. Now it's just, are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to wait for Him to like reveal that? Or are you going to try to like move ahead and be like, just give it to me, put that stamp of approval on it? So
Right. And
I love
it's
that
like you're
you
saying,
are really highlighting that.
yeah, it's the same thing true for my story as it sounds like you're saying for yours, is that you ultimately found your healthy and wonderful relationship that was the relationship that you had dreamed of, and it had the desires that God had put into your heart and all of that, right? And I wouldn't have found that, and you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have found that if we continued to stay in situations exactly like you said that are, I met people when I was dating that were also good men. I met some great guys that were great single dads. They had a lot of good qualities, but there were certain things that wasn't necessarily a negative thing, but it wasn't lined up with what I was truly looking for. And I had to say no to some of them. And that's what allowed me to find my now
Mm-hmm.
relationship, my remarriage. And it's like, had I stayed in some of these other relationships, all I'm doing is blocking myself from finding the relationship I'm supposed to have, the relationship that I have dreamed of. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, once I learned how to let go of those things, once I learned exactly what you're saying, how to say, okay, this isn't really what I'm fully wanting, and it's not, we're not looking for like a perfect person or anything like that, but there's certain
Right.
qualities
Yeah.
that, like, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of person that I really envision myself being with, or they share these values, some of those things. Once we focus on that, it's like, okay, we're not going to allow ourselves to waste time with people that don't meet those things. And so even if they have this good
Mm-hmm.
quality and that good quality and this good quality, and I really like them, and maybe they're really attractive or whatever it is that you're drawn to them, you're able to just say,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not really what I want. And so I had a lot of respectful endings of,
Mm-hmm.
you know dates or whatever it was where I or both of us just said, I just don't think we're a romantic match, and I think you're a great
Hmm.
person, and I truly wish you all the best, but I had to say goodbye to some of those things and let them go, because had I stayed there, I wouldn't have found what I now found. And so it's like, you don't want to waste your time in the wrong spot, because you're just getting in the way. You're just blocking yourself from finding the relationship that you truly do want.
Well, I love that perspective. So tell me a little bit more about, your coaching services, or do you offer, like, what kind of services do you offer for women who might be in the situation who are like, I need to learn some of these things that they're talking about,
Yeah.
and how can they get connected with you?
So I have a private one-to-one over Zoom coaching program for the woman that is basically walking through this. So my coaching program takes you through whether you're divorced or whether you've never been married and you're single. Maybe you've been in some bad relationships, but it starts you with, who am I in Christ? What is my identity? Rooting your identity in Christ, gaining your confidence from that. And then we talk about self confidence and self care, like we were talking about early on the episode. And I will help you figure out, what is it that you like to do? What is it you don't like to do? What do you want to spend your time on? And then help you to start plugging some of those things into your calendar, just like I did, to get yourself back
Hmm.
into, who am I? I'm actually living in a way that I want to live, that brings me joy. So we'll go through that. And then we go through healthy versus unhealthy relationships. So what is the difference? Because there really is not a whole lot of guidance on this, either in the church or just in upbringing
Hmm.
in general. So, what are the signs of a toxic relationship? How can you
Right.
tell that a relationship has good signs or is healthy? And then definitely how to not ignore those red flags, and how to stick to what you really want. So we would develop a list of non-negotiables of, what is it that you want? What are these main qualities that you're not willing to settle on? And then help you not settle, then help you go through them and say, this is what I'm gonna stick to,
Mhm.
right? So that's kind of where I'm at with the one-to-one offer that I have, if anybody's interested in that. And then I'm getting ready to start a 5-week group coaching right now. That's going to be on
Awesome.
rooting your identity in Christ. It's going to be on the self-confidence and the self-care piece. And so that could be somebody that maybe they're not even interested in a relationship right now, or maybe they're not at that point, but it could be anybody really that wants to grow their faith a little bit, that wants to put their identity where it should be, and somebody that maybe needs a little bit of help plugging the things that they like to do into their schedule and increasing their self-confidence and their self-esteem. So I have that coming up here also. I do also have a free guide, which you can link as well. It's the 3 essential steps to finding the relationship of your dreams. You guys can get that for free, and it goes through a lot of the things that we've been talking about here. How do you actually go about doing that?
Awesome. I will definitely share that. I'm really excited for what you are offering and the support. And I just love how, when we go through hard, if we allow the Lord to use it, He promised He's going to make all things good. Caveat to that is that there has to be bad to make it good, if all things will be good. And just how then you have this unique perspective that you can offer to women and Christian women in the church. And if we didn't have our stories, we wouldn't be able to be there and fill that space when you were looking online for some sort of support. You are now getting to be the answer to something for somebody else. And I just love that if we're going to have to navigate hard things, and that's the world we live in, it's fallen and it's hard, that if we can then turn around and use it for good, it really makes it worth the journey and the struggle. And so thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story and your resources. And if you need support, please reach out. We're here for you. And we want to encourage you, even if it's not for coaching. There's other things like the free resource that Sara has, and I have some free resources, and even just a conversation to help you begin the process to thinking about where to get plugged in. We hope that you have a really blessed day, and we'll look forward to you joining us back on It's Your Story to Tell. Thank you, Sara, for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Take care, everyone.